So, Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers was kinda crap, and after seeing the trailer, I already set my expectations so freaking low for this movie that I might as well have not watched it at all. But I was interested in if the whole meta concept thing was gonna be even worth my time, reminiscent of mainly Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I think the answer is no. And I'll go into extensive detail on all that right now. But you know, I didn't even expect to do a longer review for this movie. I honestly didn't. I was just gonna do another hashtag recent watches for this one, but I started to become strangely more annoyed with this movie to the point where my review ended up being around 15 pages long, and a lot of things that happen are just personal flaws that I found to be distracting and impeding. So I hope to come off clear, but I don't intend to force people to agree with me. I'm actually surprised how many people actually think this movie was really good. I guess the only way you can really enjoy this movie is with the biggest, thickest nostalgia glasses that you could possibly have and secure them tightly to your face so you don't have to look at the film objectively, because aside from the 90s references and other stuff, this was a pretty below average mediocre detective flick that ends up being worse than the film it's inspired by. The film was directed by Akiva Schaffer, who is one of the directors of the Lonely Island music videos, and he also directed a bunch of other stuff like some Brooklyn Nine-Nine episodes, Hot Rod, The Watch, and the Channy Awards, whatever that is. And I think it's safe to say that he has quite the resume under his belt, so I guess you can say it's now appropriate to call him out on how below mediocre this movie is. Now, what exactly is wrong with this movie? Well, the problem is that this whole meta reference theme they're going for balances offering absolutely nothing new or just strictly nothing worth really commentating on. The whole movie just feels like references the movie, and we've already had this whole concept fail miserably the last time. It all just feels very pointless and obvious. This movie just falls flat on its face in terms of how awful the attempts at referential humor is. There was only maybe one minor chuckle that I got out of this entire movie, and it was for a scene that I didn't even remember. This film attempts to try to comment on modern culture, specifically modern media culture in the field of entertainment, so I think, but the whole exploration of these ideas feels like something you'd expect from Ready Player One, where the film is literally shoving nostalgia deep down your throat that the filmmakers hope you choke and gargle and your brain cells are just disintegrating into nothingness, while at the same time telling you a story that not only feels completely pointless and nonsensical, but also feels like there's nothing to really take away from it thematically. Alright, now look, I'm not asking for a deep and meaningful story that has artistic merits that demands my interpretation, but the plot to this film feels very uninteresting and redundant of billions of other plots that have this concept, as I reiterated. For one, how Chip and Dale even meet is rather confusing to me. It's not the fact that they initially meet, but it's just kind of how. Basically, Dale is ready for his first day of elementary school, and the first thing that he does is introduce himself, and the film decides to follow the cliche of students in school looking down on the new kid, pun intended. I'm not sure exactly why, but that would imply that they looked at Chip the same exact way, but it's never addressed. But what's worse is that Dale does the pencil joke where he pretends his eye is being impaled by said pencil, and everyone has this completely forced over the top freak out for no reason to forcibly communicate that he's now an outcast.
It's a joke, see? I'm fine. You're weird.
But why? In a cartoon world, something as arbitrarily average as the impale pencil trick to the eyeball is so unorthodox that now the entire school sees him as some sort of weird outcast. In a cartoon world where talking cows, chipmunks, and candles exist. What? Now, if he was to add fake blood or something, that would be more implausible. But it's a Disney Kids movie and they're not going to do something as harmless as that. So this transitions to Chip running into Dale and having lunch with him and complimenting on how hilarious the unfunny pencil joke was, because I definitely heard Chip laughing in that scene, or otherwise he'd just go against his philosophy of taking risks, which means that he was possibly holding in his lab, but that would also imply that he was even holding it in the first place. He kind of just blankly stares at Dale as if there's no other freaking chipmunks in the world where anthropomorphic animals in general even exist. So did the writer forget to add that crucial detail? Yes. So basically freaking Chip and Dale become buddies in a rush to Lazy Manor, which makes absolutely no sense because there's no real legit reason why Chip would even approach Dale to magically be friends with him in the first place. For some reason, I can see Dale being the one to approach and pursue Chip, and maybe Dale saves Chip from whatever, like a bully or whatever, and then Chip thanks Dale and their bonding starts, but because the writers were too lazy to establish world building, they're friends just because the script needs them to do that quickly so we can move on to the next plot point. And this also doesn't make sense when they start doing goofy performances in front of their schoolmates after the schoolmates just gave Dale disdain reactions. So Chip is like, is he like popular or something? Like, had Chip come next to Dale and did the same thing when he did the pencil trick, would they easily find it amusing and start liking Dale as much as they like Chip? Can you guys please be consistent? So they start doing things like talent shows, but I never was under the impression that Chip was some sort of performer. It feels a little out of character, but that's a personal thing, and I'll get more in depth with why that bothers me later. But my issue is that the whole plot of them wanting to be in the entertainment business just feels so amazingly tacked on in such a way that I feel like the context behind this was like non-existent. Dale nor Chip never really talk about what they aspire to be when they grow up. They never go to a performing arts school or anything. I mean, I guess you can argue that the Knight Rider lunchbox gives Chip some sort of subtle characterization that he wants to be an actor like David Hasselhoff, but it's never really mentioned. You know, him having an Indiana Jones lunchbox would make 1,000 times more sense, but hey, whatever. So then we get jerked forcefully to them doing the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers TV series. Once again, no real reason for why they would even be interested in doing this. They could have said no, because we don't ever see them prior to giving interest in doing a detective adventure themed show or movie. I mean, honestly, would it have been hard to just give them just a little more character development? I mean, they could have mentioned the transitioning of their broadcast syndication in the 1980s that helped Chip and Dale in their show be broadcasted widely from Fox to Disney, having their own channel and surge a barrage of other Disney series. They could have showed multiple 80s Disney characters experiencing the benefits of the television syndicate, and Chip and Dale adjusting to this new style of broadcast television would have also helped. But nah, they just say, oh yeah, to the show because the movie needs to happen. I mean, where's the meta element, guys?
I mean, right off the bat, it was just super important to me to have a bunch of third-party characters, because to the thing of saying, if this is going to be a celebration of animation, you don't want it to be just a celebration of Disney animation. Right. And Roger Rabbit.
Because apparently it's important to have all of those third-party characters instead of strictly Disney characters, right? Wrong. Director Akiva Schaffer apparently thinks that Robert Zemeckis put all these Disney characters and Warner Brothers characters in the film for no reason other than the wank to nostalgia. But no, there was a legitimate purpose for all the variety of cartoon characters in the film's story and world building. The film takes place in 1947 because the golden age of Hollywood peaked at 4.7 billion theater admissions. So it would make sense that there's a corporate corruption and greed combined with the heavy emphasis of the Hollywood setting involving toons primarily working in the entertainment industry. There was a recurring issue with the racial and ethnic prejudice in 1947, which helped incorporate that to cartoon characters, and with Eddie, Bob Hoskins' character, as someone who had a somewhat slight prejudice against toons for completely understandable reasons.
Get this straight, Greenball. I don't work for toons.
So what's his problem?
Toon killed his brother.
What? Huh?
Dropped the piano on his head.
I'm just honestly struggling to find why third-party characters are so apparently important to put into the film. It just feels less purposeful than Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Having more Disney characters in the film would just make more sense in the world. Having Disney characters react to the sudden transition of constant live-action releases and how they're trying to adjust to this new era would be far more interesting than just doing Ugly Sonic because people remember that. I mean, it's over, people, who cares? And to be honest, I actually find this to be a very unnecessary and inappropriate flex by Disney. Just because they maintain the rights of their characters exactly as they were doesn't mean you have to start stomping on the failure of another person's property failure. I mean, they fixed it. What's the satire? Who cares? And it's not even funny. It was an internet meme in 2020. People moved on and now they're satisfied. Whatever. And why is Jon Favreau's balloon in here? Why not Wolfgang Reitman's balloon? His version is pretty much easy to design, so I don't see the reason to not include him. They included Lemur from Beauty and the Beast, and Favreau's Jungle Book adaptation is still fairly recent enough to make less sense why he's there. Too many animated characters are just in the background, but it communicates nothing about the world. Roger Rabbit didn't have a logical reason, but their inclusion in the world feels like they're participating and it's natural. Not here in Chip and Dale, unfortunately. Alright, back to everything else. So after Chip and Dale have their third season celebration before the series was cancelled, Dale reveals that he's doing his own James Bond show thing, and Chip is kind of shocked because it was unexpected. Now, this was just another out of left fielder for me. Where did this even come from? I feel we completely missed the scene where Dale feels less a part of the show than Chip. I'm really sick of films doing more telling than showing. This whole scene is amazingly expository, dumping loads of information down our freaking throats about how the show gravitates more to the appeal of Chip than Dale.
No, you never mean it. Look, you're always acting like you saved me or something, but when we were kids, we were in it together.
What are you talking about? We're still in it together.
I'm sorry, Chip. I'm just done being second banana.
When? I can't believe they shoved this down our throats and expected us to just go with it. No visual storytelling here, guys. Now, I know that people will call me out for criticizing a kid's movie for this, but things like this are important to me. It just affirms that the filmmakers think that kids are too stupid and impatient to sit through action. The other action. The one that reveals character. It's just such a slapped on thing to add for this movie for no reason. And you know what makes even less sense? That Dale is the one that's disbanding from the show. Why is it not Chip? Why isn't it that he follows his own advice and takes that risk?
No way, man. The biggest risk is not taking any risk at all.
It doesn't make sense that he's so content with the show. I mean, a little context would definitely help, but who needs one of those in this movie, right? I just want to cry. So after the 00 pilot flopped like a saggy tit, Dale is upgraded into CGI after CGI surgery, and I'm gonna get into that stupidity later. So while he's doing conventions, Chip is doing insurance selling. You know, I'd be fine with this whole thing if Chip again was the one taking the risk of doing his own show and it flopped and he gave up, since it would make more sense in his character. But it feels like it's happening for absolutely no reason at all. If Rescue Rangers discontinued after its 3rd season, why exactly is he giving up right now instead of scenes showing that he chose to do other things? It's just so random. So after Chip returns home, and just in case you don't know, he has a message on his landline after the film shows it, and Chip has to remind the audience that he has a message on his landline.
Ooh, a message on my landline. I don't like that.
Really? Wow.
So freaking Jack from the show Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers calls and needs Chip's help. So Chip goes to his house, and if you've ever seen the movie Zootopia, you realize that this movie is giving substantive commentary on drug addiction, or at least it thinks it is. Because apparently Jim can't shake off his addiction to stinky cheese. So he's already showing attraction to the stinky cheese in his fridge, and when Chip arrives, Chip decides to hurry and throw it out the window. So wait, how long has the cheese been in the fridge for the smell to have not already been emitted until conveniently Chip walks in, and then it's mentioned in dialogue? And also, why didn't Chip just like freaking melt it in the microwave and pour it down the toilet or something? Well, at least they got one character right pertaining to Jack's cheese weakness. And speaking of that, Eric Bana actually does a pretty great job as portraying Jack, and I actually wish he was in the movie just a little more.
I screwed up, Chip. My love of cheese got the best of me, and I bought more than I could pay for.
But it's wishful thinking, and that's the circle of life. Ha 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 ha. So Jack also called Dale to come in and help. And it was at this moment I thought to myself, why in God's name do Chip and Dale have normal voices? What was the problem with their original voices? If this was some sort of commentary on expectations or whatever, then it makes even less sense. Okay, so for one, Andy Samberg and John Mulaney teeter on trying too hard and not trying hard enough. The line delivery for some weird reason feels both hammy and strangely lazy for some reason. I mean, it makes these iconic characters come off as just plain boring rather than likable and endearing. I mean, listen to their conversations on the show.
Just like this case. Awful and little. What we need to find is a really big case. Well, how about that big German shepherd who lost his accent?
And now here.
So, what's been up with you?
Oh, you know, this, that. Other vague things to fill the space of this conversation.
Okay, well, you look the same.
I mean, I can see what they're going for, but they didn't have to do this. It adds nothing to their character and makes their chemistry very disinteresting and less fun for me to experience. When you cut out their key aspects of their voice, then you're kind of taking away what adds to their character. They don't just have squeaky voices, they have voices that are distinctive from each other, and that says a lot about them as characters. Here, I'll play it again, both clips.
Chipper, not now. This is the good part. But there's a storm. Storm? What storm?
What?
You heard her? We should go find Monty ourselves.
Are you kidding?
No! Who better to rescue Monty?
Literally anyone.
See? Is this registering? People that like this movie? You can still have this meta theme in your film without making these iconic characters boring. That's like if they gave Mike Epps and Eddie Murphy the voice acting jobs of Daffy and Bugs Bunny. It would ruin everything. Please don't tell me that you cast Sandberg in this film just because you guys are friends. So after a bunch of blatant, obvious, unclever references to sequels and reboots because the film thinks it's so smart communicating its meta theme, Dale contacts Chip about Jack getting kidnapped after the police called, which kind of makes me wonder why they didn't just, well, like have Jack stay with either one of them or something. It's not like they can just track him, they won't know exactly where he is. So why not just leave the building and the cops could actually execute some sort of sting operation or something? Nah, I guess not. I was actually expecting them to do that, but if they actually cared about the friend that they had 3 seasons with from a series that's dead, you would have thought they would have considered that idea. So there's this random claymation freaking detective played by J.K. Simmons, who actually I enjoyed, even though it makes no sense pertaining to his existence, but I'll just go along with it. That's what the movie wants, right? So we also learned that there are also 6 missing tunes as of recently. And then we get one of the worst performances in this entire movie, and it's unfortunately by Kiki Layne. She is abysmal in this movie, which sucks because she was great in If Beale Street Could Talk. So I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but she seemed like she just doesn't know how to interact with characters that aren't there, that are supposed to be there.
This cast is amazing. It's another one, I don't know, I've been very lucky, you know, with the people that I get to work with, even though technically I'm not working with anyone else, but it's exciting to hear their voices.
Bob Hoskins in Who Framed Roger Rabbit was fantastic in the role of Eddie Valiant. Hoskins' performance was incredibly believable when he interacted with the animated characters.
A betrayal.
No thanks, Teddy. I'm trying to cut down.
Drink the drink.
But I don't want the drink.
He doesn't want the drink. He does.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You don't.
I do.
Real.
Chip, inspiration is inspiration.
Look, I heard what Putty was saying to you guys, but I don't think it's hopeless. I'm breaking some rules telling you this, but from everything that we know about bootlegging, the whole process takes about 2 days.
It affirms how the filmmakers and animators were able to successfully make the animated characters feel like they were actually there when working on the post-production aspect. Hoskins managed to execute a great performance by observing his daughter playing with toys, which helped him in line with why imagination can really elevate a film or concept like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Like, first of all, I had to learn to hallucinate to do it.
Hallucinate? What do you mean by that?
To actually see it, hallucinate, like DTs, you know. And like if you're playing to a character there and he's not there, your eyes automatically open up, and you see that on camera. So I played with my daughter, Rosa, who's got a lot of invisible friends. You know, she's got this friend called Jeffrey, which I'm always managing to sit on somehow, and she was complaining about it, but. I realised that as a kid, your imagination is so close to the front of your head. It's part of reality. You know, you can take it out and look at it. And so I spent hours and hours playing with Rosa, you know, developing and pushing my imagination to the front of my head. And eventually I could do it. Eventually I could hallucinate.
Heck, Michael freaking Jordan in Space Jam managed to make an above-par performance work by just being himself, but aware enough to understand that he has to make the audience believe that he's actually talking to 2D animated characters.
Yeah, listen, I didn't get dragged down here just to get my butt whipped by a bunch of ugly monsters. I ain't going out like that. We're letting them push us around.
I think that explains why only one human character interacts with the animated characters and are also ironically stuck in the background for most of the time. Kiki seems like she's trying, but it might just be a case of both the writing and the directing, so I won't really fault her for it, but she still deserves some flack. But you're still my boo, Kiki. Love you. Mwah. I have a little more to say about her later in the film anyway in terms of her role. So Kiki tells Chip and Dale that they conveniently can't find the facility because rules and regulations prevent them from doing so, which is just an excuse for lazy writing to give Chip and Dale a reason to find this facility themselves. Okay, so for some reason Dale's animation starts to drop very mild frames and it looks so bad that it shows the weakness of the animation, which reminds me of why this movie doesn't work. I don't fully understand why Dale got the CGI surgery anyway. If he's doing this theater thing or any sort of entertainment, why is it going to be the ones that apparently require him to be CGI? But what's worse is that Chip doesn't even look good. Out of context, the animation is pretty impressive, which can be easily said about the animation in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which looks better anyway. But in the context of the film, something just feels so off about his animation. The animation can look so bad because it clearly is strong emphasized cell shading, but it can look at times that the facial expressions are just lacking, and this might just be a personal problem, but it just stands out more than frequently for me the second time I watched this movie for this project. Both designs on Chip and Dale just feel like a risk that wasn't completely necessary. It just doesn't feel like a risk at all. It just feels more like a gimmick. Now, this film was heavily inspired by Who Framed Roger Rabbit, so why didn't they just do Chip in full 2D animation? If the meta commentary is 2D versus 3D when it comes to both characters' choices in the film, then why is Chip so lazily animated, or his other friends for that matter? One of the absolute incredible things about WFRR is that the 2D animation animation was followed with a sense of self-awareness. The 2D struck the perfect balance of being obviously 2D animation while being seamlessly blended into the real-life setting. And even though they do have characters holding live-action items now, it was more impressive back in 1988 for how it was executed. So many details about how the animation interacts with the actual objects with the 2D characters was intentionally animated to coordinate with the objects the animated characters touch or grab. One of my favorite details is when Judge Doom's clothes and Eddie's bow tie are being slightly blown from the speed of the tuned buzzsaw Judge Doom has in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the way you heighten illusion, like in scenes like this, you're always adding some little detail that's going to make the audience believe that this Toon stuff is really in the frame.
We blew a fan on Bob when the blade gets right close to his face. That makes the illusion. Watch his tie.
I mean, there's so much effort being put into Who Framed Roger Rabbit while still being a satirical film with a meta commentary. Sounds kind of familiar. Robert Zemeckis took complete advantage of its concept in both its story and its world building, from the animation and the time setting using visual storytelling overall. It's everything Chip and Dale fail miserably at trying to be. If you were to make every single character front or background CGI characters, it would literally make zero difference. But the commentary is so damn near non-existent in this movie, and effort just feels so meaningless to me, and all of this can be noticed at the 25 freaking minute mark of this movie. Continued in part 2 because I'm tired.